school committee take one.
Set. Okay, we are going to resume the school committee meeting. We've already opened and entered into executive session. We've returned from executive session for the open meeting portion. Public input. Anybody here that would like to be heard by the committee? If you do, just step forward, identify yourself, and we'll be glad to listen to you. No one. Okay. Oh, jeez.
Somebody does.
Someone needs to be heard.
Somebody that wants to be heard. Probably your wife. I better shut it off. The first matter, we're going to skip around a little bit in the agenda. The first matter is the introduction of the new middle school principal. We've completed our search, and the superintendent is here tonight to announce who the new middle school principal is going to be. So I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Catherine, could you please join me, please, at the table? Another Kathy in the district.
Oh, no.
We're hiring all Kathys now, huh?
Kathy's all the time.
Doesn't show bias at all.
No bias. Again, I'm very pleased tonight to ask Ms. Catherine O'Connell, the next principal of the North Reading Middle School, to be here tonight to introduce herself to you. I just wanted to reiterate that Ms. O'Connell was selected from a field of 39 candidates. We interviewed 6 candidates and selected 2 finalists. Each of the finalists visited the North Reading Middle School to meet with faculty, staff, students, and administrators. And then members of the search committee also participated in site visits to the finalists' school districts and met with faculty, staff, students, parents, and administrators. Before I ask Catherine to speak, I'd like to thank the following members of the search committee who joined me in this process. Their input was invaluable. Sylvia Weiss, Laura Wall, Maureen Cosolito, Sharon Shakrella, Patricia Bullard, Patrick Daly, Deanna Castro, Mark Gorgani, and Dan McGinnis. Their input was invaluable as we made this very important decision with this most wonderful outcome. So I'm going to ask Catherine to introduce herself to you.
Thank you. I'm Kathy O'Connell. I've been a middle school educator since 2001. Prior to that, I did have some high school 8th grade through 12th grade experience, but I'm middle school 100%. I have been working in Reading at Parker Middle School, and although they are neighboring districts, I think that there are significant differences in terms of things that I can bring from Reading into North Reading and things that I can learn in North Reading and grow professionally. So I'm very excited. I'm wrapping things up at Parker Middle School right now. I'm trying to get some work done for them in terms of scheduling for next year and trying to lessen their load to the degree that I'm able. And I will be starting officially July 18th, and I'm very fortunate to be working with John Fauché. I'll have many weeks of time to transition with John, which is something that a lot of new principals do not have, and I'm thrilled about that. I'm also a North Reading resident and have been thrilled with the changes that John has made at North Reading Middle School so far in his 3 years. I think he's made some significant changes, and I've been watching them and taking notes and been very pleased. So I think he's planted seeds that I would like to be able to grow and nurture, and I'm very excited. So thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the committee, I also would like to thank the search committee. I know it's a lot of work and it's all volunteerism, so thank you. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
You have big shoes to fill. John's done a great job here over the last 3 years, as you said, and we're going to miss him, but we certainly welcome you. Anybody else from the committee would like to say anything?
I have a question about the Parker School. How big is that school, number of students? And
It's 585 currently. It's pretty comparable.
yeah, just a little bit smaller.
Yeah, Reading has 2 middle schools,
Right.
and we're the larger of them. So we have just under 600. Staff is about the same in terms of number of staff.
The other question I had was, what's the facility like there? The plant, we're in the middle, yes, I'm sure you're aware of working with the MSBA, hopefully to have a combined school moving forward. Is that a newer school, or?
It was completely renovated in '97.
Okay.
They kept some of the traditional buildings. They kept the rooms. They kept the auditorium, which was really beautiful and built from there. So it's an absolutely beautiful facility, and it's built as a middle school. This building, of course, is built as a junior high school,
Right.
which makes some of the middle school teaming difficult.
Which is why what John did, one of the first things in building the school within a school for the 6th grade, kind of started to restore that middle school
And
feel.
I noticed that.
Even though the building's not
Yeah.
built as a middle school,
Right.
so.
Right.
That's interesting. Hopefully, in a couple of years, you'll have a new
Middle school.
facility to work in.
Hopefully, you will.
You will.
You will. Well, congratulations. Reading's a
you.
great district. This certainly is a step up for you. to
It
come to
absolutely is.
North Reading.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. and
Thank
look-
you.
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Very
Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Next on the agenda, segueing beautifully, is we have from Doran Whittier, Brad Dorr, who is going to update the school committee on the progress that we've been making towards the secondary school building project. Brad, come on up.
Thank you. I also have Rob Usla, who is the project manager on this project with our office. We're happy to be here, and we haven't seen you in quite some time. And over the past, I guess, 3 or 4 months, we've actually done quite a bit of work. We've been working with the administration and the principals. We subsequently have met with some of the teachers, and we had I think, a pretty informative discussion with them, and we were able to get some feedback that I think we were able to weave into the plan. But just by way of history, what we've done is we were retained as the architectural firm about 3 months ago, I believe. And what we've done is stepped forward and taken the first step towards moving this whole project forward with the MSBA. And what we've been focusing our attention on is developing what they call the space summary plan. And really what that is to go and take all of the educational spaces and the educational program that you have and start to lay those out in the building and see how that all works based on the new MSBA guidelines and the feedback that we've gotten from the administration and from the educators. And so what we're here today to do is to show you a little bit, and this is, I always said even a few years ago when we were first doing the feasibility study way back when, that sooner or later we'd get to a fun part, and this is it. It's actually pretty exciting stuff, and what we've done is over this fancy little pen I should be able to show you without having to get up. This is an aerial photograph of your site. And right now, we're sitting right there where that red dot is. This is the existing high school. This is the existing middle school. And what we've done is we've started to superimpose over on this site, how some of the site circulation would work and where the proposed new school would go. And also just a little background on what this process is right now is we're going through what's called the feasibility schematic design phase with MSBA. And so the first thing that we have to do is better understand exactly what the problems are. We had a pretty good handle on that from the work that we did with you starting back in 2006. And so what we've been able to do is know what some of those existing conditions were. We've updated all of those. We've had a team of architects and engineers and other consultants go through the middle school and to a certain extent the high school, to go and understand, what is something, is there a fatal flaw with something that's out there, or is there something that we might be able to go and use as part of a renovation project? And as you know, when we did this several years ago, the preferred alternative at that time was to go and look towards doing a combined facility, or a shared core facility, as we like to call it, with the middle school and the high school co-located up on the upper portion of the site. And then the high school here would be demolished, and that space would be used for additional athletic fields, for some of the utilities that we need to have for stormwater retention, and other things like parking, etc. So if you're standing out on the street, we'd have an access road that would come in here, be able to go across through those fields. This area right here, again, would be fields. We'd have parking in here to be able to service those athletic events, parking right here, and then there would be a drive that would go up and around this proposed school area right here. This is the new proposed addition to the renovated middle school. We'd have parking up on the top, okay, just to the east of the existing tennis courts, and then that drive would circulate back forward. We have a bus drop-off right in here, visitor parking here, and then we would still have the opportunity to exit there. We haven't got all of this worked out yet, but what we at least have is the foundation for a plan. And this is the site plan, okay, that we presented to the building committee. It's also something that more recently is in terms of the site plan, it's something that was sent into SBA last week. So that's the site plan portion of it there. Does anybody have any questions about that? And otherwise, I'm just going to move on to the floor plan.
Just one quick question.
Sure.
It says 100% confidence that this site is feasible. There, you know, you don't see any issues with, be it slope or whatever the issues are.
Well, we're 100% confident that we can build there, and it's a question of, you know, what are the challenges associated with that. So certainly slope is one. We've more recently done some additional survey work out here to get a better handle on what the topography of the site is. And we think that we can utilize some of that slope to our advantage, and I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to the floor plan. We also did some geotechnical investigations in terms of trying to ascertain whether or not we had, you know, an inordinate amount of ledge out there. We don't see anything out there at this time that would lead us to believe that the site is unworkable. In this area, right up in here, it's all relatively flat. It starts to leak down a little bit here, and then it's very steep right about that location right there. So just below where we're talking about the building, this is an older plan or an older version, so this has actually been tightened up. And so the bottom of the building is now right in about this area. So we think that we can make that work. And I think at the same time, we're able to utilize a lot of this existing flat area to be able to have that work for athletic fields and try and minimize some of the cut and fills associated with having to put that out on the site. Any other questions on the site?
Yeah, I just have a quick question in terms of parking. You said that, you know, we'd have some additional parking, but parking is always a major issue
Yeah.
for all of our events, particularly our larger events. And I'm wondering if you could tell me what the capacity is as planned.
We went through that, and I think that we were somewhere in the 500 range.
Still pretty early too, Karen.
Yeah,
on
no,
the
I
rear
just
road.
want to have a ballpark idea of where
Yeah,
you
but
are.
we went through in terms of looking at the staffing, okay, and then the student parking that would be required, as well as the visitor parking, and looking at that in terms of getting something where there's a comfort level that, you know, it's more than you currently have to make that work. And then also the idea, and we'll get into this a little bit more at the plan, is that there would be essentially two areas of parking, one low and one high. So one would be able to service the athletic events down on the lower part of the site, and then the other would be able to service the things that are going on at the schools, whether that be, you know, a theatrical type event, or whether it's something going on in the gymnasium, or whether it's, you know, parent-teacher, something along those lines. That's a significant amount of parking that would be on the upper part, and you'll see it. We'll show you how that relates back to Main Street in both the buildings.
Thank you.
Okay? So when we look at this plan right here, okay, this area right now is the existing middle school, and this area right here, okay, is the existing two-story portion of the middle school where we're sitting right now. We're sitting on the lower floor. And so what we're talking about doing is proposing to add these areas right here. This orange is the gymnasia space. This green right here is the dining space when we're talking about cafeterias, and we're talking about kitchen areas, servery areas. This area right here is your auditorium space or your theater space. This area right here is your media center library space. And then this area right here is the high school, okay, academic wing, which is really set up to be 3 levels. And what we did is we set up in the discussions that we had, and we'll start there and then work our way back to the middle school. In the discussions that we had with the administration and with the educators, there was a strong preference to wanting to be able to work in a pod-type structure or in a clustering-type structure so that it can foster collaboration. And we also brought in a national educational program, Dr. Frank Locker, okay, to work with us to help assist in terms of bringing some of the 21st century learning opportunities and programming and planning into the equation. And so throughout that process, what we decided